Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Product School webinar. Thanks for joining us today. Just in case you didn't know, Product School offers product management certificates online and at our 20 campuses worldwide. On top of that, every week we offer some amazing local product management events and host online webinars, live streams, and Ask Me Anything sessions. Head over to productschool.com after this webinar to find out more. Today, we have an awesome guest presenting. I'd like to introduce you to Venki Naravulu. Venki is a goal-oriented and results-driven IT leader with a track record of delivering profitable and efficient products and services across a range of IT domains. He's experienced at recognizing and driving relevant strategic focus and investments for digital products and services. He's also passionate about identifying, building, and growing engaging offerings. So feel free to leave any questions for Venki in the comments of Facebook, and I will ask him at the end. And without further ado, let's welcome Venki. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, good afternoon from where I am. I'm calling in from Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope you all can hear me. Dan, just a sound check.
Yep, you're all good.
Awesome. Let me share my desktop and we'll get started.
Looks good.
All right, as Dan mentioned, let me quickly dive into a quick summary of who I am. I'm currently working at a company called Quadient, which is owned by a parent company called Neopost based out of Europe. And my background has been with product management for about 20 plus years, has been in both startup and as well as established corporations. So I've got a flavor of how to work, how to be scrappy and get some work done as a startup PM, as well as be more organized and depend on more people in established corporations, launched new products as well as established products, have managed them, owned, met and exceeded even the profit and loss objectives, which is a big deal for some job openings, just to make a note of that. Having that in your resume does help. In terms of product domains, I'm currently working on digital transformation across any domain, across any vertical. I've worked extensively on healthcare IT, messaging collaboration platform. This is a communication platform as a service. Also worked, actually built from scratch a messaging ecosystem, something similar to Slack, but we quickly pivoted and turned that into a bots platform. Worked at other companies like telecom and much more technology involved. Now, from a technology point of view, SaaS, PaaS, and CPaaS has been my more recent. I've definitely worked on the on-prem, and I'm sure you'll still see many on-prem solutions as well, which make a big impact in many organizations. And Quadient has a suite of those products as well. In terms of clientele, I worked with anywhere from small. Still remember my first healthcare IT project was with a 3-doctor practice in Cookeville, Tennessee. I didn't even know it existed, that city existed until I went there. And I've also worked with big companies like Google, RingCentral, and GoDaddy, and others. Certifications, as you will I'll probably touch upon this, it's important to have certifications which help add credibility, but also brings a new perspective. I always believe even as much experience as you are, maintaining certification does bring a different flavor to it. So I did my CISSP and as well as a certified Scrum product owner. Besides work, I'm an avid marathon runner. I'm on a mission to run one in all continents and all 50 states. I'm done with 25 states and 5 continents, so have some more work to do. Have to do the disclaimer. Anything that I mentioned here is stemming from my experience as a product manager. Hopefully, I leave this quick webinar with something that you guys have something to work with. Without further ado, let us jump into this. Now, going with the theme of the webinar, how to find your place as a PM. So right out of the bat, it seems like there will be aspiring product managers who want to get into PM, or people who have just got started into a product management role. Where do they fit in? And I also feel even experienced project manager, even me, I always find by interacting and by conducting these webinars and also participating in local product management related events, I always go in wise, but come out wiser. So this approach and the topics that we're talking about, in my opinion, applies to everybody, but more predominantly to aspiring and PMs who just got started. I'm sure you would have heard of many definitions of product manager and many books about this. But very quickly, I feel the way I summarize this, and I'm sure there are others who believe in this, is a PM, and I'll keep using the word PM, is entrusted with what is required, why is it required, and when is it required. And once they pull that together, they're not doing it in isolation, of course. They need to work with an engineering team to figure out how to get it done. And I always say this product management is a team sport. It's not one solid PM gets everything done. So the next bullet point, leading without authority, is something that you would have always heard, and the word servant leader. What that means is you are exuding credibility when you talk to anybody, be it your engineering team, your sales, your marketing, and you bring forth the maturity of thinking as to, look, I need this feature or this functionality or this product, and this is why we need it. And by the way, this is going to have a solid rate, return on investment, for example, or it's going to solve 50 customer problems and so on. So this combined together is what a product manager would be able to present to any of the stakeholders. Now, while going through this of the what, why, and the when, there are different hats a product manager wears. You could start off being a strategist, meaning you need to know which product feature do you want to roll out. I mean, everybody is talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Does that mean you simply have to get on the bandwagon and say, I'm going to start putting something to do with AI and ML? No, you have to work out a strategy. Does it matter? Do you really need AI, ML, or can you do well with well-defined analytics to begin with? Can you make it a progressive journey rather than, okay, let me jump on the bandwagon? Obviously, you have to do a research in terms of finding out who else is doing this, comparative analysis, and also find out who your customers are going to be and do they need it, okay? Once you got this done, you plan it out. And as I mentioned earlier, you plan it out with the stakeholders. You must have heard of the cliche, don't toss it over the wall. The engineers should see what's coming, not you pull them into a meeting and say, guys, this is what we are building, and I got the blessing from the CEO, so to speak. It has to be coordinated. And you also play the role of an executor, meaning once everything is finally done and you got the buy-in and you're building the product, that doesn't mean you're done. You need to figure out when to time it, when to release it, how to let the audience know, when is it coming to the market. Find those webinars or find the user conferences and make yourself known about the product, about the company as well. And I always believe if you are a good PM and you're being successful at it, share that with somebody else. I treat this experience of mine conducting this webinar, I'm hoping my humble experience as a PM is something that I can share and leave you with. And this goes to also a team that you may be leading at work, okay? And I'm going to focus a little more. In anticipation of this webinar, I did listen to quite a few product school podcasts, and they're awesome, by the way. A shameless plug there for product school. But I did do that by design because I didn't want to repeat something that has already been covered. So there is a product management podcast, which I listened to recently. Somebody describes of a growth PM, technical PM, marketing PM. I'm not going to focus on that, but I put a link in my references. You can look at that. I'm going to focus on startup PM and the PM at an established company because this may be of some importance. Okay, a startup PM wears many hats very quickly to kind of distinguish, whereas a PM at an established company may have different people working different aspects and there is more coordination that way. Now, you may ask which is more rewarding or which is exciting. I think both can be depending on your mindset, okay? So depending on how you handle the stakeholders and how scrappy do you want to get or how organized you are, everyone has a place as a PM, be it at a startup or at an established company. I'm not going to go through the list, but this is from real life examples from where I have been in both established and startup companies. As you see, the work starts at 5 a.m. And you may ask, should every PM start at 5 a.m.? That is a personal choice. But I feel getting prepared for the day ahead when the rest of the world is still sleeping, it may be helpful. Sometimes you are getting up at 5 a.m. because you have teams working in Europe, India, China. So you may be up anyways. I always encourage have a certain routine. It helps you. And my routine is going out for a run almost every day in the week, sometimes 3 or 4 days, depending on if I'm running for a training for a marathon, and then I run much, much more. Depending on the time zone, you're on status calls. On the startup company side, you are doing everything as a PM. You are neck deep or knee deep in Jira if you want to be. And at the same time, you're also addressing some open questions. So as you dig deeper into these items and as you go down, you'll see that you're owning a lot of responsibility, pricing, strategy. Is there a product partner that we can go work with instead of reinventing the wheel? Can we partner with them and then release a feature? All of this will be done by one person sometimes at a startup, whereas in an established company, you have a dedicated product marketing person. And you may have a dedicated person who is responsible for, as a product owner, who's interfacing with the technical team, whereas you own the strategy of it. So I would also encourage you to look up what is known as a T-shaped skill set. Roman Pickler has mentioned this in the context of a product manager. I'll also post that link when I share this slide deck back with Product School. In that, the vertical stem basically says, how deeply rooted are you in product management? The horizontal ones are how broad are your skill set in embracing other aspects of, say, sales, marketing, training, operational efficiencies, and so on. So depending on how you balance your vertical versus the horizontal stem, you can definitely find your place as a PM, depending on the company and the size of the company, the nature of the product around you. A quick look at what happens when that was a daily thing. This is a weekly and a monthly thing, right? In a startup company, you are in the process of rolling out as many features as you can, as successfully as you can. That is, you iterate often, you may fail often, that's okay, but you're incrementally moving towards a goal. And that's what you're doing at a startup company. So you will also be jumping in and doing the testing yourself. This could be small use cases or large testing. You may invite some user groups, third-party groups. You may, as a contractor, they may come and help you test it, because startup company, you may not have the luxury of working with existing customers sometimes. So, and you are also having a say in the product marketing collateral that's going out. You're meeting with vendors yourself and trying to establish if there is a tight partnership that you can work with them, and you're also jumping into the contract negotiation as well. Whereas in an established company, there are people doing this, and because they've been around for a while, there may be more handoffs. Some people may find it unnerving because it may sound like red tapeism, saying, man, I have to go through 10 people to do this. But again, that is where your soft skills come into play. How do you drive that servant leadership and get the credibility as you work with different people so that you can get the job done much faster, okay? So what I have done in an established company, I spent considerable amount of time, depending on the current product rollout. I spend time even looking at Zendesk, which is the customer support queue, and see what issues are being reported. I also put in a rule, anything that is a blocker or a critical issue that will send me an email, I, as a product manager, jump in ahead and then try to help resolve it with the customer support person. Now, will I do that on a daily basis? Probably not, but I'm just throwing an example as to what are the things I get into, okay? So now that you got a feel for some skill sets and some daily activities, how do you grow into this role? In my opinion, anybody who has a mindset of understanding the the what we need, why we need, and when we need can definitely be successful at a PM role. Now, can they be successful on day one? Probably not. So they have to spend time acquiring this different skill set. Voice of the customer. I mean, when I say customer, do not always assume it is that end user who's using a mobile app. If you look at the company, Twilio, or my other company called Bandwidth, they focus on the developers. They are the customers first. Of course, there is the distinction between the buyer and the customer. Whereas if you look at a typical mobile app, then the customer is going to be the end user. Especially with a social media app, you'll hear the term consumer. So understand who they are. And there's a big difference between an enterprise PM and then a consumer PM. So you need to understand who the customer is, okay? And development process, it helps a lot to understand if you're not used to what development process works for you. And that most typical one is Agile and Scrum. I mean, recently in my company, somebody posted a notice saying how Agile doesn't work. And that's not true. You have to make it work. And Agile is by far, in my opinion at least, a very important process that one should get used to, because the idea here is to be flexible, be iterative, implement often, fail often, it's okay. But as long as you're progressively moving towards your end goal, and that is what is at the crux of the Agile and Scrum methodologies. Tools, I have a link again in my podcast. There was one podcast from Product School where one product manager, she went through different tools. Tools are not necessarily software tools. They could also be a cheat sheet, an Excel sheet, or it could be how you keep track of your time. Everything is a tool. So she does a pretty decent job on it. So make a note of those. People management, I said, as I mentioned earlier, servant leadership, that itself says it all. You, as a PM, you will be working with many stakeholders to bring them together, get them on the same page, and move towards that goal that I keep mentioning. So people management is an important aspect of it. Communication skills, sometimes you're talking to a customer. It could be a CIO, CFO, it could also be an administrator who's using a product. You need to know how to switch gears and talk to them at their level of thinking. At the same time, you're turning towards your internal stakeholders like your developers, as well as your CEO, where you have to pitch a strategy. That communication skill, that savviness should also be built over time. Technical skills, this is my favorite. Many people say a PM doesn't have to be technical. There are different schools of thought. I won't go into depth. My take is know enough about the technology that's being used in your product. Know enough to question it. Know enough to challenge your development team, but do not question what they are doing, but understand the technology from the perspective that, hey, I can do this because we are using this technology, and keep it at that level. Sometimes software engineers graduate into a PM role. That's fantastic. I would say, please refrain from saying, I've done this before, so you guys should be able to do it. Now, things are changing every day. So respect the technology, respect the people that are implementing it, but do not be ignorant of the technology that you're working with. That's very important. I've seen many PMs, they drive everybody crazy. They work hard, everything is good, but they never use the product. And when the customer asks a question, they turn around and ask somebody else. Do not be that PM. Use the product yourself, whatever it is. Even if it's a developer oriented, if you're not technically savvy, sit with somebody and spend some time and see how they're using it. Because you are the one who built it, you are the one who recommended these features, so test it yourself. Last but not least, ongoing thirst for learning. I mean, the way I learn is a lot by podcast. I keep running miles. This Sunday, I ran 3.5 hours. I'm actually training for a marathon. Guess what I was doing? I'm listening to podcasts. Okay, that's one. Find the time. If you're driving to work, listen to a podcast and subscribe to certain newsletters. If you're studying your customer, this is what I have done. I have subscribed to the Twitter handles of my competition. If somebody is complaining about them or praising them, I would like to know, because it's all in social media. It's out there for you to pick what you want from it. There are many ways of learning, and I have left some pointers here. Okay, I'm trying to be mindful of the time. Let's keep going. And here are some links that I want to call out. And again, I won't go into every single detail. Um, Depending on which role you take on as a PM, when I say which role is startup versus established, or it could also be a growth PM whose objective is to only get more customers, not revenue. There are so many articles out there, but don't get buried into looking at each and every aspect. You need to understand where you can draw the line and what you want to learn from. And always keep learning from the latest trends. One thing I always do when I do a Google search is I go in and put the timeline to the last 12 months or the last 1 year. I don't look at items, especially for software product management, which is the essence of this webinar. I would not really look into something that is more than 1 year old, especially if I'm trying to understand technology. So while there are many tool sets out there, tools out there for you to search, make sure you don't get lost in those. Okay. So I have categorized these into, product management related topics. In spite of my 20 years of product management experience, I literally listened to every chapter of the product school's product management book. And guess what? I learned something else. And I learned, of course, I heard the podcast, it's, I don't know how many hours through my running. Okay, I ran miles and I was listening to it. So the point I'm making is do not right away some of the topics. It's product management. I already know, I'm already working in it. If there is a reference out there, look for it, learn from it. As far as the getting into product management, there are a few items here that I've mentioned. The most important takeaway from this is find where you are in your career. For example, you've already been doing product management for a couple of years. Now you find this new thing called AI, ML, or the business intelligence related products. So you're already a PM. Now you want to get into a more specific niche, then start looking at those topics. I mean, I have a couple of podcasts related to IoT, to AI, ML, and plus I also find local groups here in Raleigh who are meeting quite often, maybe once a month or once every 2 weeks, on topics related to data analytics and also AI ML. Just go mingle with them, learn what they're doing. I don't know if it's there in every city. There is a local conference or a forum called 1 Million Cups, the number 1 million cups. And they have startups coming in and pitching products. Sometimes it's about dog food, really dog food. Sometimes it's about something exciting that a local company is working on. Go to those places and find out if you can help them. I do pro bono consulting once in a while, and in the process, I learn something new. So try to do those things so that you can get to learn more, and then you may do a better job at your work as well. Training, I always do it. For my current role involves AI ML. I haven't been successful at it yet, but I started the course on machine learning by Andrew Ng, and I've gone and I finished 2 modules. There's a lot more to go, but I intend to finish it. I might not learn a lot from it. I may not be able to retain a lot from it, but it gives me a perspective of that. So please do not write off even training on topics that you may not relate to much. But if you're in that realm, I would recommend going into it. And finally, always research. I have a few blogs that I subscribe to. Healthcare IT is one. And I keep looking at webinars, trends, what's going on, so that you can go back and add a new feature to your existing product. Or if you're that startup PM saying, hey, by the way, this is the trend and this is a pain point I've heard from several sources, let us accommodate that into our product. Okay, so I'm going to stop there so that we have time for questions, or I can talk more if we need to.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. That was great. So I'm looking here in the comments of Facebook, and I don't see any questions just yet. So while people type out some questions, one thing we like to always ask our speakers is, do you have any advice for aspiring product managers? You gave a great wrap up there of everything product management, but if you had one piece of advice, what would that be?
As I kind of briefly alluded earlier, when you're saying aspiring product managers, you're obviously, product management by itself is a very wide topic. You have to find that area of focus. I've heard the term called full stack PM. That means you're good at everything. I think it's good to have that. And I'm going to go back to the T-shaped skill set that I mentioned. Find your place in that vertical portion of the T as to where you want to root yourself. It could be product management, no doubt. Plus, is it going to be, for example, data analytics related skill sets? So find that if that's where you're going, then find the resources that will help you. The mentors, find the courses. I can guarantee you it's very easy to find the right kind of sources, but find somebody that can guide you. As I mentioned, I participate in local forums. There is a group where I have offered my time as a mentor, as also as a mentee. So find places like that. So these are all free references. Plus, you build up your network. You never know when you may lose your job. Having a good network always helps. So collectively, this is what I would recommend. And some of them apply to anybody, but in general for PM, I mean, as I mentioned, these links are a very good resource to get started, and you can build up on it.
Awesome, thank you. And this presentation with all these links in it will be available on Product School's SlideShare account. It's slideshare.com/Product School. So if you guys want to click on any of these links, you can find it there. So I'm still waiting to see if we have any questions. I'm not seeing anything here. So another question we like to ask is, what's your favorite part about product management? What motivates you to wake up and start building?
I've always been a sucker for startup, but I've also found the same kind of satisfaction even with established companies. It is finding a solution for a problem and then seeing it from concept to revenue and seeing it actually being used. It gives me a great amount of satisfaction always. I think the degree of satisfaction is more with the startup. So that's why I end up working more on the startup side and with a company like that. Even the role that I'm in right now, though I'm part of a bigger company, we are working on something exciting, and I'm really excited about the aspect of that. I'm going to be finding solutions from real world problems, and I'll be there to see it materialize and see it successfully implemented. That always gives me satisfaction. Again, I can't take the credit as a single person, but being the driving force, that keeps me up every day in a positive way, of course.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree. It must be real cool seeing that from start to finish and actually getting to watch it solve someone's problem. So I'm not seeing any questions here in Facebook. So we'll wrap it up, and I'll check right before we sign off to make sure someone's not still typing. But thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Venki. It was a pleasure having you on the channel.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to give everyone some more information about Product School and Product School's upcoming events and our courses. Our product management course is taught by industry experts working at companies like Google and Facebook. And in addition to that, we offer online and on-site events at our 20 campuses worldwide. So if you're located near one of our campuses, make sure you stop by every Wednesday and Thursday. And you can also find us on social media at Product School and keep up with the latest product management content at productschool.com/blog. So thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you next week. Oh, look, we did get one question here in the last second. Are you still there, Venki?
Yes.
Awesome. So Felipe has just asked me, I do have a question. When you learned product management on the field with not so much background nor mentoring, what's more important to focus on, learning the theory or trying to fake use cases?
I mean, actually, there is nothing like a theory, right? Product management is a skill set that is acquired over time, and definitely understanding the use cases is very important. So there is nothing like, okay, you do these 10 things, then you are a product manager. The approach that I took to solving or addressing a few use cases at a startup company will definitely not apply to an established company. Have I also failed in a few companies that I worked with certain use cases? Yes. So the answer to your question, to kind of quickly recap, is the focus on understanding the end result and the stakeholders that are involved in that is more important. There is no certain rigid path that you have to follow by. Hopefully that made sense.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think that about wraps it up. That's all the questions we have here. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
See you, everyone.